Hello, welcome to my shrimp room. This is John with Shrimply Thinking. I'm gonna do a shrimp acclimation video today. I know there is quite a few of these videos online, but I wanted one of my own videos to direct people that pick up shrimp from me to go to. I do get quite a few newbies picking up shrimp for the first time from me, asking me about the acclimation process. So it makes everybody's life easier to have a video online for them. So I'm going to drip acclimate these crystal red shrimps that I have. I only have one tank of these, and I want to have a second tank going, and I'm going to make that tank a higher grade crystal tank. I like the all white crystals, and so that new tank is going to be, I'm going to try to create an all white crystal shrimp. And they are considered the highest grade crystals, triple S. But if you like red shrimp or like the stripes, the red stripes, and to each his own, go for that color. I actually, if I have more tanks available in the future, maybe I'll try this line and I'll focus on the red instead of the white next time with these guys. But for today I'm focusing on the white. They're going to go into the tank right next door. I typically wouldn't acclimate these shrimp because I know all my water parameters in the fish room of each of my tanks, and I know my crystal Caridina tanks are all very close, if not right on, as far as pH, water temperature, hardness. But for the sake of this video, I'm going to show you two methods that you can use to acclimate them to your tanks. So by acclimating them, you reduce the risk of the shrimp uh, molting prematurely. A premature molt can be deadly to a shrimp, and a quick change in water can trigger a molt. So we obviously do not want to do that. It also just reduces the overall stress of the shrimp. It's going into a new environment. Your water is going to be a little bit different than my water. You might be going right into dechlorinized tap water, and that's fine too. These shrimp do live in dechlorinized tap water. I have a display tank with a bunch of them in there that I do not, uh, it's just over pH of 7, which is just how our tap water here comes out. But obviously it's dechlorinized, and they do fine in it. They actually do breed a bit. They don't breed as much as they do in these breeder tanks where I keep the water softer for them. So I'm just going to pick out as many of the shrimp in here that I can see are really dark white and with the least amount of red on them as possible. Uh, as I said, I'm looking to create an all white shrimp, if not just mostly white. A triple S shrimp is considered all white except a little bit of red just behind the head. Would be considered a triple S shrimp, and that's what I'm going for. And even better, that if I can get an all white shrimp, that would be awesome. I got the tank right beside it here, which they'll be going into, so it's going to make life easier for future sorting of the shrimp, so I can swap them back and forth as I see them in the tank, whether they're a good one in this tank or a bad one in the new tank, and they'll just be swapped back and forth. Just getting a few more here. There's about a 12 or so good ones I see in here that I want to pick out and put into the next tank. And then we will do some acclimating. There's two methods of acclimation I'll show you. Um, Basically just with an air hose and a valve of some sort. And if you do not have those supplies on hand, then you can just do adding water to your acclimation container with a cup every 5 to 10 minutes. The slower you acclimate, the better. Any shrimps coming into my shrimp room get acclimated, whether they're Caridina or Caridina. I acclimate everybody so they have a nice, easy, smooth transition going into my next tank. So these guys I'm just putting into a little plastic bucket I have. I'll have just as little water in the bucket as I need, and then I'm going to increase the water volume in that bucket by at least 3 times. So filling this bucket to the top would be about 3 times. So there's a couple ways to do this. Drip acclimating is kind of the gold standard, which I use for all my shrimp acclimating. And to do that, you just need some airline, some regular airline, and then ideally some way to regulate how fast the drip is. This is a one with a plastic valve and one with a stainless steel valve. Stainless steel one is a little bit harder to regulate how fast the drip is. I use these just for my airline, but the black one, they work really well, and they're super cheap. You know, $5 for like a dozen of them at a hydroponics store. I got this one at. I'm notorious for spills, so I weight the end of mine. I use this as set up all the time for me, so I have a weight just to help hold it into the tank. And if you do not have a valve, you can just take a piece of air line and put a knot in the end of it. And the tighter the knot, the slower the drip's going to be. And this one works just as well too. So if all you have is an air line, that's all you need to do drip acclimating. So I'm going to use the one I always use with the black valve on it and the weight on the end. And I'm going to put acclimate them in this container. It's about a third full, and we're going to have it at least full to the brim. I like to put it into a second bucket. Sometimes I use a 5-gallon bucket. It just another safeguard to avoid me spilling on the floor in case I forget about it and it overflows. I have a second backup to catch any of the water. I also picked up this alert. It sends off an alarm if I put the probe where I want to put it. It will send an audible alarm. I got this at Home Depot. It was like $7 off the bargain rack there. It works really well. I use it for my, you for my aged water in my barrels, or when I'm refilling a tank. You just suction cups onto the side, and as soon as the water touches the probe, it sends off an alarm. They do make these more expensive that hook up to your phone, so alarm will go off on your phone if you are somewhere else in your house. And I would like to get that one too, because I did forget about filling up a storage barrel of water, and I was somewhere in my house that I couldn't hear the alarm go off, and sure enough, water on the floor. So I try to use every safeguard I can. This is the tank it's going into, and to the right there was the tank they came out of. I put my airline towards the top of the water, again, not to drain the tank down fully, like it's down too low there. So, and I use a clamp to clamp it up at the level I want it. So if I do forget about it, it's not going to drain the whole tank onto the floor. It will stop when the level gets to that point. So I clamp it on the top so it doesn't accidentally fall out. And I also clamp it to the acclimation container at the bottom as well. So that's the full flow. I'll slow it down a bit here. It's 1 to 2 drips a second. like I say, don't rush it. I do minimum 2 hours. Sometimes I'll go more depending on how expensive or how fragile my shrimp are, might be a better terminology. So that's a good speed drip there. Be about 2 hours to triple the volume of this water. And at triple the volume, it should get it very close, if not right on to the same parameters as the tank they are going into. I know guys that buy really high-end shrimp. The higher end shrimp are usually more fragile and they'll acclimate for 4 to 6 hours before they drop them in the tank. So as you can, if you haven't figured it out already, my audio screwed up again, so I'm just dubbing over this section of the video here because I struggle with my mic all the time. And yeah, if you don't have an airline, just use a little cup like this and just grab a little bit of water and add it to the acclimation container every 5 or 10 minutes for the next 2 hours. It's more work involved here, but your shrimp will benefit immensely from it. Oh, and this is my new partner here. This is Willow. Willow is from Rankin Inlet, Nunavut, Canada. She's a rescue dog that we picked up last week, and she's awesome. So she's now my company in the shrimp room, checking out all the shrimp here. So container inside a container, just avoid any spills happening. And I will clamp this onto the container as well, uh, whether it to avoid it just falling off on its own, Willow knocking it off, me inadvertently knocking it off and not seeing. I've just learned over the years to take time and not spilling onto the floor. So it's been a couple hours, and the acclimation container is filled. So it's at least 3 times the water volume it started with. It's actually more because, of course, I overflowed it. Wasn't watching it, so hence why I put it in a larger bucket every time to avoid that spillage. So I've tested I know the tank beside it that the shrimp came from is a pH of 6.7, and the pH of the tank they're going into is 6.8. So it's like a point off of the tank. And the acclimation water is also 6.8. So it's exact. So these shrimp are good to go in. So you'll notice my substrate here is white lava rock. And if you saw my video from a couple weeks ago, I think it was the cull part 2, I spoke about changing my substrate all to white to help me with the selective breeding of the shrimp and picking out the most favorable ones. And but I was mostly referring to a darker color shrimp. So at the time it was the blues and the cherry red Neo Caridina, which has been working great. But I'm looking to make white shrimp here, so this might not be the best substrate. So kind of the opposite theory here, a white shrimp maybe should be on a dark substrate. So it's going to try to hide its coloration and camouflage itself, but it'll have more difficulty. So I want to pick out the strongest coloration. So I'll probably have to swap this out for a darker substrate in the future. They make a dark red lava rock too, the exact same as this, that I'll probably try out. But in the meantime, this is what I got. So when you put your shrimp in the tank, if you have fish in there, don't just drop them in the top of the tank and let them swim through the whole depth of the water column. That has the potential of triggering uh, a predatory instinct in your fish, and fish that may not have attacked shrimp before or can't fit them in their mouth, there's a good chance they're going to go after the shrimp and just give them a try. Maybe not able to eat them, but could hurt them. So I would suggest turning your lights off and putting the shrimp down as close to the bottom as possible, and preferably into some vegetation or some cover so they can go and get into cover right away. They can start to realize that there's fish in this tank and they can't just swim around freely as they did in these breeder tanks. And they will learn to avoid fish. They know what is going to trigger an attack or what fish are on the hunt, and they'll learn how they can behave in your tank. You just have to give them that opportunity. So ideally, lights out, drop them at the bottom, and then leave them out, the lights out for the night, and check on them in the morning. So as I suspected, these guys don't look all that great on the white substrate. One, they just don't pop, and two, it's kind of cheating if they do kind of try to become more white on a white substrate. That's kind of cheating, and they might not present that way putting into your tank that has a dark substrate. So I will change this out into a darker substrate shortly. But they all look happy. They're all feeding. They look good.
So I know this is a drip acclimating video, but I just wanted to show you the different grades of crystal red shrimp. And so the top row is the triple S, and those are the ones that I'm going to try to have a tank pure of. Not only a little bit of white behind the head, and I'm even going to try to get rid of most of that white as well. And then as you move down, the more red is considered a lesser grade. But in the end of the day, what you like is what you like, and I would get the shrimp that you like and don't worry about the grading. I just typically do like a fully white shrimp, and these crystal red shrimps are very hardy. They can go in regular dechlorinated tap water. They might not thrive as far as breeding goes, but they will breed. I keep mine just below a pH of 7. So like I said, we're at 6.6, no, 6.7 or 6.8, I think, in this tank. So yeah, just a little bit below 7, but I am trying to breed them as fast as I can. So that is why my display tanks have a pH greater than 7, and these guys live in there just fine, and they also breed in there, just not as prolific as they do in these breeder tanks. So yeah, you can barely see these guys on this white substrate compared to the black substrate. Boom. All right, everybody. As always, thank you for watching. Thanks for tuning in. And please like and subscribe. See you on the next one.